All right. Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, my name is Louis. We are here with BoSTEM Virtual Career Chats. If you're a student listening in, welcome. We are super happy to have you. As you know, these sessions are a great opportunity for you to learn about what is a career pathway in STEM? How do I see myself in a STEM career? And so today what we're doing is hearing from a guest who's going to talk about her experience in a STEM company and what it was like for her to change careers, to kind of learn STEM skills and see herself as a STEM professional. So sit tight. I hope you have questions and we are going to jump in without further ado. So to introduce our guest today, we're going to highlight that we're going to focus a little bit on the science portion of the STEM fields. So if you're familiar with STEM, we're going to be focusing specifically on the science piece, but of course, we're always going to talk about lessons learned, transitions, anything that we feel is related to that kind of experience. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our guest, Marion Paolini, who's coming from Servier BioInnovation. Welcome, Marion.
Thank you. Thanks for the kind introduction. So yeah, let me start right in and talk to you about my career. So pretty short career for now, but I hope it will inspire you and some of you and give you ideas about how to start a career in science. So as you can hear, I'm French. I'm from France, and I've been working in Boston for the last 4 years now. So I'm a biologist by training. I started in science, well, like all of you in school. I wasn't sure I was going to continue. I liked every kind of topics at school, so not particularly science or biology beyond other topics. But as I continued my studies, I chose a double major. So the system is a bit different in France, but let's say a double major, science and economics, and just to try and see where it would go. I didn't want to specialize too much. And I got a first lab experience actually, because I had to. I was actually an exchange student at University of Chicago during my college years. So I was super lucky. I had to have a lab experience. It was part of my curriculum. And I just knocked on a couple of doors at the labs at U Chicago, and I was super fortunate to arrive at the Gardel lab, which was a biophysics lab. And so I got trained by great mentors, a postdoc that was there. At the end of my college, I wasn't sure I wanted to do research, but I did an internship at another French pharma company. And my mentor there told me that I should continue science as much as I could in research. And that would open doors for me in the pharmaceutical industry. So I just took his advice and continued in research and did my PhD in biology again. So more precisely, the topic of my PhD was formulation. So trying to enhance the delivery of chemotherapies. So it's drugs that are commonly used for cancer. And so drugs are, I don't know in how many details I should go, but drugs are often can be toxic for other cells than cancer cells. And so there are strategies to formulate them, so to put them in very tiny vehicles and to try to direct them specifically to cancer cells and to avoid going into healthy tissues. And so that was the topic of my PhD. I really loved it. And I got the opportunity to do a postdoc. So it's a couple of years after the PhD where you're still in academia, you still continue science project, but you have more freedom than during a PhD, because you're not a student anymore. So you can kind of have your own small lab. I had the opportunity to hire students myself, so it was great to work with students, mentor students, and the topic during my postdoc was basically the same, trying to formulate drugs, but this time it wasn't chemotherapy drugs. It was something that is very famous now, mRNA, because it's the molecules that are used now for vaccines, for COVID-19 vaccines. So I worked on that, and a couple of years later, a French pharma company called Servier called me to see if I would be interested to scout for them. So to look for research projects, research collaborations, or even drugs that we could buy, or collaboration with partners with whom we could work on research collaborations. So that's out of the lab, but it's still very close to the lab, because I have to evaluate these opportunities from a scientific perspective. So I like it very much. And maybe I should stop there and see if there are questions that I can answer. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you so much, Marion. Students, wow. Marion shared a lot there. So, I mean, I guess for me, it kind of paints a nice picture for our students, right? Where you can start, how you can transition, and then even after you become a professional, right? Like there's even opportunities to continue to learn, to continue to contribute to the STEM community. It's all super exciting for me. Marion, I want to take a moment and pause and hear a little bit more about what it was like for you to study sciences back home in France. So here in the Boston Public School system, our students are taking foundation classes, so they're learning a little bit about everything. And
Yeah.
sometimes the students might not see any relevance, or might say something like, I'm never going to use this anywhere in my life. What classes or what experiences did you find to be really helpful for you to say, I think I can like get a job or pursue this as a career? What was that class for you, and how did you realize that?
Yes, so it's a great question, because I think the experience in France was exactly the same. So a lot of classes where, it's the fundamentals and basis of science or math. So you're like, yeah, but I'm never going to use that. It's too abstract. But at some point, I think it was the last year of high school, so I had to wait a bit for that. But I got this moment where I didn't realize that it would be helpful for a job, but I did realize that what we were learning in math class was helpful for physics and chemistry. And I was super excited, because I was like, okay, now this is so useful. And I can see how it translates in the real world. So maybe this is too precise, but it was differential equations. And having this tool to solve equations that represented something that you can really understand, like physics equations or chemistry equations, and being able to solve it from a mathematical perspective, but see in real life what it was doing. That's where when I really enjoyed it, and I tried to stay close to what I could see or experience, and that's why I chose biology, because there's a lot of experiments, so real world things that you can actually see and touch, and yeah, the mathematical tools are always there, super useful, of course, to analyze the results. Any kind of results you get in biology, even if you can see it, you still have to model it in a mathematical way. So every science class ended up super useful. So yeah, just hold on, and you will see how useful it is later on.
Thank you so much, Marion, for reinforcing that. We here at BoSTEM kind of tell our students or our educators as well that, we understand it's really difficult, it's really abstract. You might not understand the application of it right away, but understand you're really beginning on your journey. This is a foundation, this is a really introductory. So thank you
Yeah.
for kind of echoing, like, hold on, there is going to be that moment for you. It might not be
Yes.
right now, but it happens.
Yes. Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you. Marion, you mentioned something else that I think is really important for our students to consider as well when they're thinking about a STEM pathway, a career pathway, and that's mentors. So different people that you found to help you along the way. Could you share a little bit more about how do you find a mentor? What is your relationship with the mentor like? And do you still have a mentor today?
Yes, yeah, thanks. I think it's a great question. And yeah, actually, my first mentor was this scientist, so Margaret Gardel, who had a lab at University of Chicago. She still has this lab. And so it's funny that my first mentor, being a French person, was an American scientist. But yeah, I mean, how do you find a mentor? For me, it was just knocking at her door, and she opened it and she said, well, yeah, of course, we're hiring students, so come in and we'll teach you things. So I think it's just a matter of asking, just ask, and if they say no, they say no, and you'll find someone else who will give you the opportunity. So I think, yeah, it's just a matter of asking, having the I wouldn't say ambition, but just a willingness to learn. And of course, yeah, I still have mentors. So during my PhD, I had a mentor. It's not necessarily your advisor during your PhD or your postdoc. It's not necessarily your direct advisor, but it's someone who has a job where you say, well, that may be a job I want to do later on, or just someone who's working in a similar topic, but it's just a willingness to help you. So yeah, I think I had mentors all along the way. And again, it's just because I asked, questions about their career path, or if they can help me get an internship or something like that. So yes, and I still have mentors. I'm very lucky to have my boss now, who's a great mentor. And I think to be a good mentor, they have to find what's good in you, what drives you, and trying to learn things to help you go your own way.
Super important. I mean, you mentioned a lot of the things that our students should really, understand, having a sense of voice, being, comfortable with just asking, right?
Yeah.
Because
No,
oftentimes just asking can open many, many doors.
exactly. The worst case scenario, they say no, and you just ask someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. So perseverance is another thing too, because I know sometimes our students might feel like, oh, I keep hitting a wall, or this is so challenging. I'm getting so many no's, but just
Oh God,
understanding
yeah.
that you're walking into a community that is so welcoming, so inviting, so supportive as well. So if you can just, use your voice and say, hey, listen, I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. I mean, people are ready to step in and help out as what you're telling us.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I got a lot of no's too, so I'm just highlighting the yes and the nice opportunities that I had along my career path. But yeah, it's if you're here, if you're willing to learn and to help, people won't. I mean, if they say no, it's really that they're too busy, or I don't know. But you're as a student, you're often willing to give your help. So especially in biology labs, where we always need hands, to do the experiments. So giving your time is a huge gift for scientists. So yeah, if you're lucky, they may say yes. and help you.
Absolutely. And students always understand that these are opportunities to not only build relationships with people, but to also understand how do you, support yourself? What is it that you need? What is your interest? What is your passion? Because again, all those will help you really narrow down how to be successful in the field. Marion, so we talked a little bit about your studies and your current work as a STEM professional and the mentors. I'm thinking about our students that love science. They want to continue to study this and might even consider a career in the sciences, but they're like, ugh, I don't want to be in a lab. I don't really want to be a scientist, but I want to be in a company that does all these cool things. Is there
Yeah.
a place for those types of students? And if so, what would be like those positions?
Yes, I mean, so there are tons of positions. So first, about being in a lab, I didn't want to be a scientist at first. I mean, yes, science, I loved it, but a researcher, and I didn't want to spend too much time in the lab and researching but not finding anything. It was my worst fear, and I ended up doing, I don't know, 7 years of research. So so you can change your mind and just try it. If you don't like it still after having tried it, then yes, it might not be for you, but just try it. And if you really don't want to be a scientist in a lab, there are other opportunities. So I'm still a scientist. I'm still part of the R&D, so research and development group in the organization. So there are positions for scientists who are not in the lab. Although I have to say, you have to build your experience as a scientist, and that has to go through the lab, at least in biology, because you can find other sciences where you can be on the computer all day and avoid the lab. But in biology, yeah, if you want to do science and biology, I guess the lab is you have to, is a mandatory step. But other than science positions in the company, there are tons of departments. There's an industry department, so it's mostly engineers who are responsible for the production of drugs. So there are tons of positions around supply chain. So yeah, how do you make drugs? How do you get the medicine to the patients? So these positions are not science positions, but it's still part of the pharmaceutical industry and how to get medicines to patients. There's also a department on medical affairs, so being close to patients, patient engagement, corresponding with patients to understand patients' needs, also medical doctors' needs, because we don't just conceive medicines without being connected to the patients. So that's a very important part of our job too. And these are not necessarily scientist positions, and of course they're not in the lab. They're mostly positions where you dialogue with the physicians or with the patients. So that could be interesting too for students. And of course, all the positions that are in every company, finance, human resources, all these positions that are super important, we call support, but it's really the foundation of a company.
So students, I mean, I hope we're listening closely. Marion just listed a ton of different avenues that you can kind of explore to be both directly in the lab, supporting the lab, or even just supporting the company and the work that they're doing. So, I mean, I would take Marion's advice, try to seek those opportunities to really just learn, be a part of, get exposed to, build curiosity around something, because that's definitely going to help you make your decision.
Yeah.
Marion, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I feel like with your experience, you have a lot of insight, but then also as a STEM professional, you're kind of seeing the real world problem solving happening as you're working. So it's really, really inspiring to hear. I
Thank
want to
you.
close here with a couple of advice for our students. So right now, our students are in hybrid learning. That means that some are at home doing school, and some are actually in the school building learning. I'm thinking about those students that might say, oh my gosh, summertime is coming. I don't have the, teachers around me. I don't have my peers around me to kind of help me stay connected to this, exploration. What would be your advice for those students to kind of maximize their summer, or just to not lose any of the learning that they have now during the summer months? What would be your advice?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if there are programs like summer programs that are organized in the area, but yeah, I would look for programs in any area that they may be interested in. Other than that, I would take the opportunity to, I know it's a bit cliche, but to read, just to, learn about a topic they may be curious about. Also, maybe reaching out, I don't know, there may be summer opportunities at I'm saying that, but I'm not sure, at the Museum of Science, for instance, volunteering at a place like that. Yeah, I usually take the time of, took when I was a student, took the time to read and on any topic, not necessarily science, but topics that are of interest. Also now, my time, it wasn't pretty popular, but looking at YouTube videos on I don't know, astrophysics, or how vaccines are made, or because I found all these making science popular videos, so that could be time well spent, to just try to learn as much as you can.
So students, I mean, just stay exposed. From what I'm hearing, Marion, right? Like just try to feed yourself as much STEM as possible so you can constantly have that thinking around it, right? What is it that I want to pursue? Am I interested in this? Oh, let me explore something totally different. There might be a connection that I didn't even know about. Totally exciting to hear about. Students, I mean, we're talking about a lot here, and I know that some of our students are in the middle school ages, but our high schoolers particularly really try to seek those opportunities to apply yourself, to just get exposed, to get connected, honestly, because that's what's going to serve as a really helpful insight into a career pathway in the STEM fields. Marion, thank you so much for sharing
Thank
all
you.
that you have today. We walked away with some really key insight as to what it was like to study overseas in France. I mean, oh my gosh, what a perspective to have. So thank you again for the work
Yeah,
that you're
thank you.
doing.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was great to speak with you. And if there are any questions or anything, just reach out. I don't know if you can share my contact info, but please do if there are questions. I'd be happy to get in touch.
Absolutely. Students, you heard it directly from Marion. So if you want to continue this conversation offline, if you want to, hear more about what it's like to be a scientist working in the biology industry, or biology field, excuse me, feel free to reach out to your educator, reach out to me, and we can connect you to Marion to continue these conversations. But I also want to take this opportunity to remind you that STEM chats and STEM bites and all these other virtual opportunities are another opportunity for you to continue to learn, to explore, to really see yourself in STEM fields. So please take advantage of all that you have available to you so that you can be successful in the future. But I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Thank you, Marion, for supporting
Thank you.
BoSTEM and sharing your story. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure was mine. Thank you very much.
Of course, you're welcome. And I bid everyone a safe and healthy rest of the day. Please enjoy yourself. It looks beautiful out. I see the sun shining, so I hope that you can get some time to get some of that sun. Take care now.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.